draft is over. Let's give some grades. All right, so round 1 was in the books on Thursday night, round 2 yesterday, and then day 3 today. Let's talk about some of these wide receivers and their landing spots. So let's grade these landing spots here. So we're going to talk about the round 2 guys. If you want to check out round 1, I've got videos for all those guys from round 1 already up here on the channel. So let's start out with the very tippity top here of round 2. That was with Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from Florida State, going at the very top of round 2 to the Buffalo Bills. So Keon Coleman, he's a guy who I've had a really hard time wrapping my head around. He ran a terrible 40-yard dash, but he did great in the gauntlet, right? Sometimes I watch his tape and I go, wow, this is a big guy who can dominate. There's other times where I go, well, why isn't he using his body? This is a great opportunity, though. Great landing spot. I give this an A- for landing spot for this guy because there's 241 vacated targets between Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis being out of Buffalo combined. Of course, they did add Curtis Samuel earlier in this offseason, but that's not anything too overly competitive. Nothing that Coleman certainly can't beat out himself. So yeah, it's a player who I feel really good about. I also feel really terrible about. What do I do with that? I think for me, he lands probably being the number 2 receiver taken on day 2. The guy we're going to talk about next, I do prefer over him. But I think he's going to be an early round 2 pick in dynasty rookie drafts. He's got high upside. The floor could be terrible, the floor could be nothing, but the upside could be majorly great. Speaking of that 40-yard dash, I did a little bit of looking just to try to find some comparable guys who've been drafted highly, who ran in the 4.6s. And the comparable players I found were, there really weren't many. Juwan Johnson, Visca Chenault, Traylon Burks ran a 4.55, so a little bit faster than Keon. Dontavian Wicks, David Bell, like a lot of really bad names there. And then one who's mega exciting in that Cooper Kupp. And then also Jacoby Myers, who's turned out to be a really, really good player. So there's definitely some hesitance there when you look at that 40 time. Maybe he is the guy who stands out among that group. Again, there's a mega high player there with Cooper Kupp, but there's also like a perfectly good Jacoby Myers, and then kind of a bunch of nothings, plus a Dontavian Wicks, who we'll see, just definitely does not make you feel good when you see that 40 time, but when you watch the tape and you watch the gauntlet, it makes you feel a little bit better about how he is. So I think he's definitely a round 2 rookie draft guy. Not someone I'm necessarily prioritizing, but the opportunity is just fantastic. And he's got Josh Allen at quarterback, so there are worse places to start. Sneaky little bonus here for you. I still think Khalil Shakir could definitely be a sleeper this season, though, because of this depth chart, because Keon Coleman doesn't necessarily just put him in the ground. Next up, Ladd McConkey. So one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. Definitely a my guy for me in the 2024 wide receiver class. I give this one an A+ for the landing spot because he gets to go to the Chargers. I'm still a bit hesitant about how much they're going to throw. You have the Greg Roman factor, right? You have Jim Harbaugh as well. But you do have Justin Herbert, and you have a just clean slate of opportunity here, right? Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, nothing's going to scare you off there for Ladd. And Ladd is a guy who played a lot outside at Georgia. He can play inside as well. He can really kind of fill the Keenan Allen void a little bit there. And that's about 150 targets right there, just Keenan Allen alone, not to mention the Mike Williams of it all, with him being gone as well. Look, I don't expect that many targets to be available because of the change of offensive scenery, but I do expect Ladd to pretty much step in and be the number 1 target for Justin Herbert. I've got him above Keon Coleman for me in rookie drafts. That's mostly just because of the players they are. I prefer Ladd as a player over Coleman as a player. I don't think when it's that close to draft capital, right? Like they went back to back, so it's not like Coleman went significantly ahead of Ladd. It's not a Brian Thomas versus Ladd McConkey conversation here. So I still love me some Ladd. To me, he's kind of a back end of the first round in a rookie draft. I've got him my 11th overall pick in a rookie draft, right behind Brian Thomas going to Jacksonville, but ahead of a couple first-round guys. I prefer Ricky over Leggett. I prefer Ladd over Leggett. I prefer Ladd over Ricky. Ricky Pearsall as well, him going to San Francisco and them holding on to those 2 wide receivers. So definitely a guy I'm super stoked about because I just think the sky is the ceiling for Ladd McConkey. This one I don't quite feel as good about as those others. I'm going to give it a C+ here for A.D. Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas here, going to the Indianapolis Colts. It's not an ideal fit to me for him. You know, he's going to join up with Michael Pittman being on this roster already. Also, Josh Downs from a year ago. I do think A.D. Mitchell's an upgrade from Alec Pierce, and he's going to kind of get to play that role a little bit, but play it better. However, there just hasn't seen a whole lot of usage in that role in this offense. Pierce, not a guy who really gets a whole lot of targets, about 60 or so per season. And so I'm a little worried about the volume for A.D. Mitchell. I don't totally love that for him. I also just don't see there being a ton of 3 wide receiver sets for Buffalo, but I think he should, by the end of the season, be playing all the 2 wide receiver sets over Josh Downs. I don't know. I don't totally love this fit to me personally. I think he's too stylistically similar to Michael Pittman to really kind of carve out his own niche, his own role in the offense. But he's got the athletic traits to really be something, though. You know, there's excitement there for sure. He can be a really, really good. I mean, he could be their alpha. He could beat out Pittman if he truly does hit his ceiling. For me, that slots him in the 204 in a rookie draft. I did kind of my rankings earlier with this, and look, these rookie rankings right now, they're very fresh, they're very raw. I'm still working out the kinks here, but that whole group of wide receivers of Coleman, Pearsall, Leggett, and Mitchell, I have those 4 in a row. I got them at the back of that right now, so that puts them in the kind of early to mid round 2 in a rookie draft. That'd be 16th overall, so the 204 in a 12-team league. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now with A.D. Mitchell. I like it, I don't love it. Speaking of liking but not loving, I'm not even sure I'm 100% liking this pick here. That's Jaylen Polk to the New England Patriots. I put this one at a D+ actually for Jaylen Polk. Look, the opportunity is there. He can climb this depth chart quickly. However, he does have a rookie quarterback, and I'm looking at this, by the way, through the lens of his own personal fantasy value, his own personal landing spots that were out there. Not necessarily what he's doing for the team, but more for his own fantasy value. I just don't love it in year 1 for him for sure, and I don't quite frankly love it even beyond, because I feel like he's a player who's probably going to have a better receiver be added to this core. You know, if things hit, if Drake Maye is good, you see a Stephon Diggs move, right, to Houston last year, or this year rather. You see these kinds of moves where these rookie quarterbacks end up getting those elite weapons once they grow. That's what I could see being the best case scenario for Polk, is he's kind of good in year 1. Maybe he does beat out Demario Douglas, which quite frankly I don't really think he will. But then year 2 they go add a real receiver, right, a real target weapon for him to play with. And so I don't love that. I also don't love the player, but the professional scouts loved him a lot more than I did, though. And they took him in early round 2. Personally, I thought he was more of a round 3 player who kind of got pushed up a little bit. So I don't love that for Jaylen Polk. I think the opportunity is there, though. That's why I'm going to go D+ here. I'm not going to go too harsh on him. Maybe I should have gone C-, but I'm going to go D+, though, because I just don't totally love it. Rookie quarterback, conservative offense. I think there's just a lot of things. I have a hard time seeing fantasy relevance for him in year 1. And for round 2 receivers to be drafted, we would like to have them have some fantasy relevance in year 1. So in a rookie draft, in my rankings, I put him all the way back at the 210 in a super flex draft earlier today. I took basically all the higher end running backs in front of him, Penix and Nix both in front of him. I do have him just in front of Malachi Corley, who I'll be talking about in the next episode. Stick around for that, so be sure to subscribe here to the ADP Average Dudes podcast. We're gonna have a ton more NFL draft coverage, talk about the rookies and their landing spots, their value, just like this, but for the next round coming right up.